now begin with my opening statement. I have long said that congressional hearings are opportunities for representatives and witnesses to be in conversation with Americans. Yet, despite receiving billions in taxpayer subsidies, every witness that we invited today from the oil and gas industry declined to answer to the American people. For example, Devon Energy is a Fortune 500 company and the biggest oil producer on federal land in the lower 48 states. That should have been reason enough for Devon to be here today, answering questions with significant implications for our public lands and natural resources. As you can see, Devon Energy is not here. Of course, there are other reasons that I asked Devon to testify. Like all oil companies, Devon gets special tax breaks intended to encourage fossil fuel production. When it drills on public lands, Devon also benefits from outdated royalty rates and rental fees that haven't been updated for inflation in 40 years. U.S. taxpayers spend roughly $650 billion annually on fossil fuel subsidies, and we have a right to know what we're getting in return. Another reason is that boom and bust cycles are nothing new in oil and gas. In fact, the last big crash was only 5 years ago. But instead of preparing for the next inevitable rainy day, it seems as though the oil and gas industry only planned for a government bailout. There's simply no reason that large companies like Devon should have been caught by surprise or without the cash reserves to weather the latest economic downturn. Yet oil and gas companies were huge beneficiaries of coronavirus relief legislation. The industry received over $10 billion in direct aid, lobbied the Trump administration for access to the Main Street lending program, got it, and then raised another $100 billion in the bond market. Instead of using these funds to keep workers on payroll, the oil and gas industry cut 100,000 jobs and spent on stock dividends for shaky investors. Devon, for example, laid off 22% of its workers, got $220 million through various relief programs, bought a competitor, and paid shareholders $257 million in dividends. I invited Devon's CEO, who made $13.3 million last year, to discuss these decisions, but he declined. I also invited the CEOs of ExxonMobil and EOG Resources, who are similarly accepted millions in benefits while paying out millions in executive compensation and shareholder dividends. I wanted to give them the opportunity to set the record straight in case I'm getting something wrong. They both declined. I invited Ms. Kathleen Sagama, president of the Western Energy Alliance, that represents many of these oil and gas companies. She has testified before this committee on countless occasions and appeared twice in the Senate late last month, but she declined the subcommittee's invitation. Then I invited her colleague, who found the time to attend a Republican forum in this committee just a couple weeks ago. He declined. That's 0 for 5. Ms. Sagama's refusal to answer our questions was particularly surprising and disappointing because the whole point of trade associations is to speak up for their members, including in congressional hearings. If Ms. Sagama were here, I might ask her why her website features a report about President Biden's leasing pause with false information that contradicts the U.S. Energy Information Administration and the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. I might ask her why this report was funded with taxpayer dollars, but edited by the oil industry before publication. I might ask her how policymakers like me can work in good faith with industry leaders like her, despite this pattern of behavior. Because Ms. Sagama refused to even show up, we won't know if she could answer these questions. I came to Congress to fight for families no matter what special interests I have to stand up for. In my nearly 2 decades as a consumer advocate, I've seen the way that big banks prey on regular Americans to line their pockets. And I came to this committee with an open mind about the oil and gas industry. It's hard to do that, though, when companies get billions of dollars from taxpayers but can't be bothered to testify in Congress about what they use that money for. Congress is poised to consider some of the most consequential climate bills in decades, and dialogue is central to our democracy. We are fortunate to have an impressive panel of experts today to tell us more. We look forward to your testimony and learning from you about these important issues.